What does it actually mean to make sense of something that broke you open? Hi, I'm Pascal, and I'm the host of 1 Degree Shifts. Today I'm sitting down with Guy Simon, a psychotherapist, researcher, and PhD candidate at Bar-Ilan University in Israel, and someone who brings both clinical rigor and genuine humility to some of the hardest questions in the psychedelic space. I've had experiences in this work where I came out knowing something I didn't know before, and I've had experiences where I came out carrying something I couldn't quite name or couldn't verify or really wasn't sure was actually mine. In others, I was just straight up confused about what it all meant. I think most people who've done this work have been in at least one of those places. What I've never had is a real framework for understanding why one experience lands one way and another lands so differently. Guy's research gave me a much better understanding of that. Before turning his attention to psychedelics, Guy spent years doing clinical research on sexual abuse, complex trauma, and PTSD. He's based in Amsterdam, where he runs a practice and serves as clinical director of Impulse, an integrative mental health center. That background matters for this conversation because he's not coming at this from enthusiasm or ideology. He's coming at it from a lot of time sitting with people who are genuinely suffering and trying to make sense of what happened to them. The research we're talking about today involved 48 in-depth interviews with people who had difficult psychedelic experiences outside clinical settings, not in trials, not in therapy rooms, in retreats, ceremonies, and informal contexts, the kind most of us actually moved through. He wanted to understand how people make meaning after something overwhelming or fragmenting like a psychedelic journey, what frameworks they reach for when those frameworks help, and when they make things harder. What he found is something that I think a lot of people in this space genuinely needs to hear. And I'll be honest, some of it landed uncomfortably close to home for me. So let's get into it. Hi, Guy. Good morning to you. Welcome to the
Hey,
show.
Pascal.
It's a real honor and pleasure to have you. And I'm actually really excited about this conversation because you're coming in with some really interesting perspectives and information based on research you're conducting with peers of yours. And I'm excited about it for multiple reasons. But first of all, I'm also a journeyer. I've attended my own psychedelic journeys over the years, and I've had multiple experiences, including challenging ones. And I'm really looking forward to learn and reflect with your findings. So thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
So tell us more about this research and why was it so interesting to you and why was it so important for you to do it?
Right. Well, I think it goes way, way back. Um, Me as a teenager having psychedelic experiences when I knew absolutely nothing about what's going to happen. Just my friends told me it's going to be fun and weird, and they say the word psychedelic, which didn't mean a lot but sounds extremely cool. And I went into those experiences, mostly recreational use, parties, and just being in nature with friends. And back then, I didn't reflect on those experiences a lot, but nowadays I do. And several years ago, I realized that some of those experiences were really loaded with psychological content. So, relationship, attachment, mm, emotions, strong emotions, and even something that we're going to touch upon can be framed as trauma processing in some sort of way. So, those experiences were loaded with psychological information. And I was wondering, was I invested in that as a teenager? Is this what the substance do? Is it the set and setting, which I knew nothing about back then, but makes sense? But in my context, I think not, because it was very recreational and let's just have fun and joke and listen to great music, etc. And yeah, many years after, I'm a psychotherapist, so I'm now very much invested in psychology, psychotherapy, the human psyche, the human soul, maybe emotions, etc. And I keep on getting participants to my studies and actually also clients into my clinic that are using a lot of the trauma framework, psychological framework to make sense of their experiences, which makes a lot of sense. This is kind of the core of our Western culture. When we think about ourselves, when we reflect, when we try to understand ourselves, we go to the nearest tools that we have. And I think the strongest one will be the psychological framework. And inside of it, trauma. And trauma gained a lot of attention during, of course, the last 50 to 60 years, but especially in the last couple of years, trauma is using the social media kind of to penetrate our head, our mind, our daily life in a very weird and particular ways. You can buy products that are related to trauma. You can gain healing if you will do trauma work. You can achieve great things if you will encounter your trauma. There is a price. Could be like 3,000 euros or US dollars, and you need to go to Mexico and eat a couple of mushrooms and chant, and you might gain healing, recovery. Yeah, not trying to be cynical about this, just it's everywhere.
Right. And that's how most people navigate these journeys, right? They like you said, they use whatever's closest to them. And when we say framework, just to define it a little bit better for folks who might be new to this work, is a meaning making framework, something you come back to kind of reflect on and make sense of your journey. And your research kept coming back to a single word, which is personalization. It's this idea that a framework becomes genuinely healing when it's taken up from inside rather than outside through an external force like a facilitator, for example, or a cultural setting or something you heard on the latest documentary on Netflix. And today we're going to explore some of the most common patterns and frameworks that people did leverage in your study. But can you explain that in plain language for people who maybe haven't read the paper? Like, what's a framework and the internal versus external part of it?
So, in plain language, I think most of the psychedelic research are talking about the same thing. We have our concepts of self and world, and we want to flex them. We need to flex them. This is how we go into the psychedelic experiences, that something is rigid and something need to change.
Mm-hmm.
Personalization will be moving this from a concept I read on an article and newspaper, saw in a Netflix TV show, and make it my own. So without personalization, it's kind of it's fake. It's external. It's coming from this researcher or Michael Pollan or Gabor Mate or Bassel van der Kolk after I read this book, and he influenced me a lot. So there is a lot of strong concepts and framework to understand oneself. But there is also the option that you kind of put those aside, refer to them as information you can use as an analytical tool. But you experience something that is personal, that is unique to you. And God, I'm saying this like it's something easy, but it's not. Honestly, Pascal, I don't know what is mine and what I borrowed from other people inside of the psychedelic experience and actually in everyday life in some sort of way. For that, I think I need to do a lot of meditation, being very honest with myself and being sometimes maybe harsh with myself. But during a psychedelic experience, it could be very hard. It's a very suggestive experience. And the borders dissolve. You cannot tell sometimes what's real. You cannot tell what is the right perspective on the world and self. And you are not sure if it's trauma that you experience as we speak during the experience, or it's a framework that you kind of impose. So you need to find a way to personalize it. And cultural symbols, as I refer to them in the paper, are really strong artifacts during sense making and meaning making. But again, they need to be kind of your own if you want them to last, if you want to use them afterwards. Um, you don't want them to fail you at some point. So also when I said that we're all doing kind of the same work in psychedelic research, it's all about meaning making and sense making, or else it will be lost somewhere will be flowing in the oblivion. So something that needs to be held, and I think a framework that is really based in popular media is something that you can hold for long. For example, trauma, right? So you will get these anchors from the world all the time that will make you understand what you've experienced through this framework or that, etc., etc. I hope I didn't confuse more than I.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's making a lot of meaning for me right now. So I'm curious about understanding this a little bit better before we dive into the patterns, which is how can, I mean, you've already said it, it's difficult to know what framework is yours and which one is external. What are the benefits of having your own internal framework? And can people hold multiple frameworks at the same time to make meaning of one experience?
Think, first of all, absolutely yes. People can and should hold as much framework as they can and try to make a sense out of them and not to be clinging on something very specific. And this is something actually I see a lot in my clinic. People are coming with specific concepts about what happened to them, what they're going to experience, and actually they already did the meaning making out of it. Something that I hear a lot in psychedelic integration is when we're trying to make sense out of it, a lot of people say, yeah, I know that. I knew that even before. Why didn't change? And it's not something that I usually say, but you predicted what is going to happen, and then it happened. Maybe you are a bit rigid about the possibilities in life. Maybe holding complexity and multiplicity is something that it's hard for you. And it's kind of funny because psychedelic experiences can really take care of those parts, on the rigid parts. They should, as much as I understand, expand our concept of self and the world. Are you able to take this in and make something meaningful out of that? Or you just want this confirmation? For example, yes, you do have trauma, and it's this, and it's there. And now you need to do the work. This is a framework. And this framework is very specific and might not hold strength to walk this path. Maybe because it didn't got personalized in some way or another. So I think, well, I would say that not knowing is knowing. And from the, yeah, how can I say it? As a researcher, I'm trying to avoid assumption as much as I can. I want to bring the lived experience of people. And of course, I do interpretations, but those interpretations should be made as an offer. And it's another framework to think about things. Someone else can read my results and look at my data and see in a different way. So I think not knowing is the most supportive thing for me as a researcher, and this feel like a knowing. So I can walk feeling safe in the world, knowing that I'm not knowing because there is so many possibilities. But there is a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty is very, very frightening. And the first thing I think we encounter regarding uncertainty is the death that is coming our way and trying to avoid that. So holding uncertainty is the way to, for example, resilience. And if you are able to hold uncertainty, you will be able to hold multiply frameworks. But if you're afraid, scared to death, you will try to find the right way and the right analysis or the right answer. So life will not be a waste. And trauma framework is beautiful. It's the hero journey. It's the ordeal. It's Jesus Christ. It's Muhammad. It's Moses. It's whatever. It's the Buddha. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very well said. And also, the psychedelic experience by itself brings a lot of uncertainty and a lot of multiplicity of different dimensions and different parts of ourselves. And it could be quite challenging and confusing. I've had experiences where I really know what the heck happened. And the shortcuts were helpful at first, but they evolved and changed over time to a point where they didn't look anything like what I started out with. And so I really appreciate your feedback and your advice about not holding anything too strongly, because it does keep shifting just as we keep growing and changing ourselves. And your research you identified about 5 different main categories of patterns, or different ways that people were kind of leaning into after a challenging experience. The first one, which we'll dive into now, I call it the mind goes looking. And the patterns were specifically about somatic discovery and embodied re-experiencing. So those can be kind of big words. And I'd love to hear more about the people you interviewed. What happens in those first moments after something difficult comes up in a session? And what were people reaching for? What do you mean by somatic experiencing and somatic discovery?
Yeah. First, I just want to say that, oh, goddamn, those words, somatic, embodiment, epistemology, ontology, those are really, we need to find different words, but they're being abused. But yeah, I will answer specifically, but I call it a nonverbal language. Many people feel that the body is telling them their deepest secrets, channeling information, and releasing different information. So I think it's a non-verbal experience, non-verbal language that is happening during the trip. And also, and this is very, very challenging, it happens also after the trip. Depends on the way that you do integration. So integration is, we have one concept usually of integration, but integration can be all sorts of things. Integration can be a dance, integration can be shaking, integration can be shouting in the woods, integration can be many, many, many things. It's not only about sense making. It's not only about the psychological framework, because you don't need to have an outcome. Not necessarily. And I think when we're talking about the somatization of the experience, we're not talking about outcome. We're talking about something that is spinal. So somatic discovery is about the body kind of as a container that holding something for the person. He feels that something in his body is starting to talk with him, sharing information. And the body is usually at those moments doing something that is overwhelming for a person. Shaking, purging, body heat is going up. I feel something is stuck. Maybe it's stuck in my head, maybe it's stuck in my stomach, maybe it's my throat. And this is holding a lot of meaning. And I'm saying stuck because it's coming back and back and back. The word that people usually choose is something is stored there. And when they say something stored, I obviously going to Basil van der Kolk, and the body keeps the score. So his concept is that the body is storing traumatic experiences, right? And the body that stores information is a concept that is very, very popular and make a lot of sense. I think is also very comforting, because it's not somewhere far that we need to look. We don't need to consult the psychiatrist or the psychologist. We can reach in, we can touch it, we can be in a relationship with this. And I think this is psychedelic therapy, right? It's the opportunity for us to go inside, yeah, or travel outside, um, completely on our own. Actually, we don't need a guide, we don't need a facilitator. We need to take care of ourselves. And when we go in, we can find this trauma that is stored, and then we need to do something with it. And the body have a way to do that. So shaking, purging, etc. So this is the somatic discovery that people experience. And I think we all experience that. Our body is doing things that, what the fuck? We're not sure where it's coming from. And second one, as the embodied re-experiencing, it's time travel, basically. It's not people remembering something that happened to them. This we will just call remembering. We can say embodied remembering. I'm not sure what. This is why words don't make sense at some point in academia. Mm-hmm. But embodied re-experiencing is the time travel of people to something that happened many, many years ago, maybe in their childhood, or we call them also flashbacks. So, right, a flashback, it's not really remembering, it's being there at that time, being this child, being this person that experienced this and that. So specifically in our study, we're talking about revisiting the trauma. And then there is a very, very inflated debate in psychedelic research. Is this a recovered memory? Is this actual remembering something? I don't want to go there. It's a never-ending conversation, and it doesn't need to end. The most important thing is what people make out of it for them, not what we as researchers think about that. But just to be very clear, all of the participants that had this embodied re-experience said explicitly, I was there. I was not remembering, I was there. I was this child, or I saw this child being, excuse me for triggering, being molested, which is also something, Pascal, that I think we wish for sometimes, that we can hold the child that we once were, see them in the moment of suffering, and be with them, look at him in like good eyes, with compassion. But it's also scary. And it can be even scarier if I didn't know that this happened. Mm-hmm. But it comes as a flashback. So what I can make out of it? If it's a flashback, so it happened. And then the real journey starts. What do I do with this information? Do I need to be active? Or is this a psychedelic experience, hallucination? Is it something that I put there, or someone else maybe put it there for me? Depends. It could be, who is the shaman? Who is the facilitator? What is the concept of the retreat? If it's Gabor Mate retreat in the Amazonians, could be that the framework is we need to go back. We need to go back into our childhood and see what went wrong for this experience of suffering that we have today, that we have now. And it's not new. Gabor Mate didn't invent that. This is psychoanalysis by one-on-one. This is Freud. We need to be regressive and aggressive, and we need to look to this hidden thing in our consciousness that we're not aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've experienced both of those different patterns, and in some cases from people that I attended retreats with, it got pretty dark in terms of I relived my childhood memory as my father did this to me, and the person was already in his 50s, and it was a shock, and he just fragmented, and yada yada. It became a really big thing to hold. And I'm curious from your research and what you found through people's experiences, how does discernment come into play with that when you don't know if it's yours or if it's someone else's, and you don't know if it's a past memory or something else? Like, how do people navigate this skillfully?
You know, I'm a colleague of Jules Evans from the Challenging Psychedelic Experience Project, and we work together. Actually, this data set is part of this research, and he did. I think it was 3 to 4 months ago that he did online talk with a couple of experts on this exact question: what do we do with that, and how do we understand it? And hundreds of people jump on this lecture, and I got so many emails afterwards. Everyone in the panel got so many emails afterwards. What do I do with that? How can I know if it's real or not? How do I proceed? Because this is exhausting, fighting this question. Did it happen to me, or I'm just making things up? And sometimes, usually many times actually, you will not get an answer. So I'm coming from research actually on sexual abuse in early childhood and the development of PTSD and complex PTSD. This is what I did before psychedelic research. And so many people came into our laboratory with this question. I dreamt that, for example, my father did and that to me. I don't have any anchors. I'm not sure I can go to my father and talk about this. He might, or he will dismiss it 100%. And also, I don't want to mention that, what it will do to the relationship with my mother, what it will do to the relationship to my siblings, and can I even hold that? So this is why they come to us. And the only thing they want, Pascal, is the yes or no question answer. Yes or no. This is the only way they will leave the room, the office. Yes or no? If yes, okay, let's go into therapy. If no, oh, they don't want to hear the no. No. We need a coherent narrative that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We need outcome. This is why I'm challenged a lot by current research, always about the outcome, the outcome, the outcome, the outcome. But I think us practitioners of psychedelics, of Buddhism, meditation, of many type of practices, we understand that outcome can come in the middle, in the end of the practice, can be a psychedelic practice even, and the day after it will be gone. And the same questions will stay without answer. And then we're trying to hold this complexity and unknown as much as we can. And we understand this is part of our journey. But when you truly suffer, and the only way out is through, and this is also the title of the paper, it's an ongoing struggle to find the truth. And I don't have the truth. And many of those people will not find the truth. I can tell you that many clients are coming to me to do this sense making of the experience, and I'm offering a couple of things. We can have a more spiritual meaning making process on this experience that you had. We can have a more psychoanalysis, more psychological, whatever works for you. But if you cannot go back to your abuser, let's say, and get this yes answer, well, the path will be long. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes there's a lot of healing and wisdom from not knowing, right? And maybe forgiving even in a situation of uncertainty, and it's really challenging for sure to go through something that's deep and as traumatic as that. And it's a very uncertain situation, and I have a lot of compassion for people who experience that and don't know. Let's move on to the second pattern, or in this case, the third pattern at this point. It's the experience as healing instruction. And that one's a very common one in ayahuasca circles, for example, where grandmother told me to leave my job or told me to leave my husband or told me to move into the woods and now I'm a I live in a van now. Those kind of situations. Can you share a little bit more about what that looks and feels like to people that go through this pattern? And yeah, the dangers of it too. It's a very dangerous thing that a lot of people follow healing as instruction.
Why not, actually, Pascal? I want to circulate back to you. Healing sounds like a great instruction for life, no?
Mhm. Yeah, it depends on where it comes from. I have a really good friend who talks about the rule of three. You get something in a psychedelic experience that feels big and uncertain, just put it on the shelf for a while and see how it evolves. But also, if it comes back multiple times in a journey, then maybe pay a bit more specific attention to it. So sometimes you get some messages that can feel quite out there. And I think that's one of the frameworks people use that, well, the medicine told me. So I'm giving away all my agency and my ability to discern to the medicine as this outwards external voice that is instructing me to do something very specific. That can be very dangerous.
Yeah. So, as we just mentioned, people are coming to those experiences on the most fragile and suggestible moment and psyche minded in their life. They're coming to heal, they're coming to fix whatever they can. And they are here there for the instructions. This is how they enter. And sometimes nobody stopped that. This is a lot of power and strength in the end of the shamans. I hate this word, but the shamans, the people that audit those retreats. Well, can I say that retreat cultures is brutally capitalistic? Brutally capitalistic. And they need lots of people to come to their retreats, and they need to touch the most vulnerable and fragile parts, in your soul. Some Many years ago they advertised us through becoming the right man, or see this beautiful lady, etc., etc. You don't see that today, right? There is no retreat with a guy sitting on a horse smoking Marlboro, or a girl washing a car in a bikini. There is this inner healing, inner intelligence. Meet yourself. They know yourself. Meet your trauma. The word trauma is the word that is dominating the social media. You want to go to heal your trauma in retreat? Do you want to learn about trauma? Do you want to, yeah, both. Usually heal your trauma, learn about it. And they coming for instructions. And sometimes they don't live with instructions. Sometimes they live with instructions that are coming from the medicine, right? I'm not sure what is that, right? But sometimes they live with instruction coming from the facilitator and the framework and the concept. And as a person that work with people that dealing with trauma for their entire life, it's a never-ending work. And the healing process of trauma is not linear. Trauma stays there, and the only thing you can actually do is learning how to hold it. And when you hold it for some time and you get support and you feel love and you start to feel compassion to yourself and to your story, and you can breathe more easily, this is the healing process. You never get rid of the trauma. You don't forget the trauma. You don't rewire your brain like some research suggests psychedelics do. Even very gently saying, we're lowering those beliefs and those beliefs come up. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, but nothing is rewritten. And sometimes people read those articles very, very wrong. And it's really different from what actually happens. I think the best instructions are let it be. Let it be and let go. and don't try to kind of do a Lego with things afterwards. Don't try to match this experience to this memory, to this. Don't try too much to take things that will make sense out of very fragmented experiences. You will might stay in a loop, a never-ending loop.
Yeah, because that's an easy one, I think, to hold on to specifically. It's like I received an instruction and felt like a wise elder or like a plant intelligence telling me that I need to be doing this. And sometimes it might not be fitting your path at this point. And yeah, like you said, it holds a lot of power. And I think maybe if you could share a little bit more about this, is this one of those patterns that's actually really hard to let go of because it feels so descriptive?
Yeah. I will. I'm also doing psychedelic. I'm a fellow traveler for some people. Let's call it like that. And I just had a person here in my clinic that had a very intense experience, very intense, somatically, emotionally, spiritually. But after the session, when he sat with me for the integration, he said, Guy, but I wasn't healed. First thing I thought to myself is, dude, you had the most intense experience I ever saw. That looks like healing as much as I understand the healing. You released everything, emotionally, spiritually, and fluidly. Like you were all over the place. You cried and you laughed and you were touched with your most intimate parts. Trust me, I'm a professional. And you're saying that you were not be healed? What do you mean? So you want to have this experience again? That's intense. When do you want to have it? Because you want to heal now, right? I was talking to Adam Aronovich, Healing from Healing. Please invite him to your podcast.
I think I should. I love his account, actually.
He's the best. So he was in the Temple of the Way of Light for many, many years as an anthropologist. And he shared about people coming from the States to do the deep work, like very, very intensive experiences. And he shared about a veteran that came there, did, according to Adam, a very deep work. And he also saw him very, very happy and joyful and interacting with people and eating and exercising and deep ayahuasca experiences. So in the end of the retreat, he reached out to him and asked him, Josh, how was it for you? And Josh said, it's not worth the money. It was shit. Adam answered, you had a good time. I'm pretty sure you had a good time and it was meaningful for you. Like, this is how I saw it from the side. And Josh or George or James or Jim, I'm not sure, said, I didn't meet the trauma. So it wasn't that meaningful for me. And I think those are the frameworks that take people back into another experience, another intensive, might be more aggressive and regressive experience of psychedelic use. You might encounter the trauma next time, but maybe there is nothing to encounter. Maybe you don't need to heal anything. Maybe acceptance and commitment of what you feel and what happened will be the healing process. Maybe you don't need to stand in front of the dragon, look him in the eyes. Maybe there is no dragons. As much as I know, there is no dragons. I would love to have dragons in the world, really.
Me too.
But
I'm all for dragons.
yeah. Also, Pascal, so it's the people that come for psychedelic integration and for meaning making, asking me this basic question of did it happen or didn't happen, and I offer them the frameworks, as I mentioned. I'm also leaving them kind of with those couple of frameworks. So asking them to hold this complexity and multiplicity and parts, they can go back to having a very intense dive in a psychedelic experience. But I also want to offer them other things than another intensive experience. And I think this is where psychotherapy can be, and Buddhism and meditation practice can be very supportive to a person, sometimes much more than a psychedelic experience. It can really, really exhaust us at some point.
Yeah, it depletes us actually, in some cases depletes us a lot and is asking a lot of us for, just basically physically to start with. Like it's pretty demanding. And I think, like you touched on earlier, there's a cultural addiction, I think, to chasing peak experiences, and we want the big dragons. And that was my experience with my Aya journey. I was like, I want to meet the angels in my, my heavenly realms and whatnot. And that's actually what my intention was before the journey started. And I totally did not reach that. I reached the basement. And that was me wanting to chase something powerful, and I could see people around me, like, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, is that pattern of people sharing these big, holier than thou experiences. And I was jealous. I was like, I want to feel that. I want to see the angels, and I want to see the beautiful spirits and whatnot. And I couldn't see anything in my experience. So there was a chase for that. And I think that we have a cultural addiction to that. Can you share a little bit about that? Like, in terms of the cultural context from which we enter these journeys, did you see sort of a chasing of those big imageries and these big symbolism and those type of archetypes in your research?
Yeah. I'm not sure how to answer that, but I think I will go with this. Life is exhausting, and it's recursive, and it's sometimes boring, and we need to work really, really hard to be worth something in our eyes or in the eyes of others. This is why I think Instagram, for example, is doing an amazing work for people. There is a framework to how to present yourself, how to get feedback, and you can share something that is edited really, really nicely back, and you can get all those beautiful, beautiful likes. But life doesn't look like that, right? We all know that. We're saying that this is Instagram and this is life, but we want life to look like that. When we spend more time online, social media, also using AI that polishes everything to a perfection that can really disgust you at some point, right? Like a bad Disney movie. This is too much. This is too clean. This is too Teflon. We try to also kind of engineer our experiences to be like this. So I had a person coming for a psychedelic experience, and during his peak experience, he told me that his mind shifted to how he's going to kind of share his story to other people during his experience, building the framework that he's going to use to have this symbolic fortune he can walk with in the world. Or if you want to say, what is the Instagram post I'm going to write about my experience after it will end? So this is another way to being anchored in the world to get this approval from others. So we need to have a coherent, sexy story, and it should be under this frame, usually, Pascal, of ordeal. So we need to process pain, suffering. We need to have an hellish experience, and we need to get through the other side. So the only way out is through. Trust the medicine, trust the process. Those are the big concepts that lead a lot of people into those experiences. And those, for them, you need to be a hero, right? It's the hero journey that starts as a child, fighting the lion, and becoming a man on the other side. But sometimes you don't feel like the man. You feel like a wet mop on the floor. And this is really, really frustrating. So when I say personalization in the article, I'm kind of suggesting that people should rethink about those frameworks. Those are generic, basic frameworks offered by brilliant minds, but they should be adapted to what you need. And for that, you need an investigation. You don't need to read all the books. You don't need to know a lot about the psychedelic experience. You should maybe interact with a person that don't hold a very strong framework towards those experiences and also towards your mental health, right? You need a fellow traveler, a professional fellow traveler that have a strong ethics. And I think ethics is the most important thing. And epistemic discipline is the most important thing when we're talking about psychedelic facilitation, psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, etc. And those things are not being taught a lot. They teach us how to work with trauma, how to work with PTSD, complex PTSD, OCD, this, and that. But they don't teach us about the epistemology and how fragile we are and the innocence that we're in during those experiences. And also research promote working with your trauma in psychedelic experiences, and it's out there, right? So if it reach Netflix and the most popular newspapers and books, I also want to have that, even if I'm not sure that I have something that is trauma. I want to be part of the cool kids.
Yeah, we all want you all want to be part of the cool kids. Yeah, there's definitely the cultural aspect of chasing the peak and wanting more healing, and then you talked a little bit about the accumulation of knowledge, right? And deepening that in all the different ways and trying to get as much tools as possible. And I'm curious, like, just to close on the recursive healing project pattern, how can someone, I mean, if there is a line or not between a recursive healing project being a healthy way of engaging with the work, or something that's actually avoiding ordinary life? Because I know a lot of people who are in this recursive healing project where they're going to Peru all the time and they're doing all these
Yeah,
journeys all the time, and they're
yeah.
not living in the real world. They're actually not part of the real world. They're in the medicine world all the time, and I find that, well, I want to put any judgment on it. I'm curious what you think about the line between those two worlds.
So honestly, I don't have a clear and clean answer. I'm not sure. Um, I want to meet them and talk with them and ask them this recursive healing process really supports you, or it become kind of a bypass, or it's become the only thing you know how to do, right? Maybe you should quit that job, right? Maybe you can do more things than writing code or whatever, teaching mathematics. Yeah?
Mm.
I don't know where to draw the line, but I think a person need to ask himself, does it still working for me? Or I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And even if you say, yeah, I'm doing the same thing over and over again, and I like it, and it gives me joy, and I feel the purpose, whatever, go ahead.
Whatever floats
But
your
if
boat,
you're,
right?
yeah, yeah, well, it's about also belonging, Pascal. We need to belong
Mm.
to something. We need to be a part of something. We need to wake up in the morning and say, oh, yeah, I'm going that direction. And if this direction is really supports you and being a person in the world, so go ahead. I wonder, do you bypass something? Did the work like 10 years ago and now you're just, you know, doing the same thing over and over again, telling yourself that you are healing something, but maybe there's nothing to heal.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, there's no specific answer to that one. Um, Yeah, the next one is pretty interesting. It's a pattern that a lot of people don't actually talk about, which I think is uh, something that should be talked about more. Is when the framework fails. I'd love for you to talk about that. What does it mean for a framework to fail for someone, and what does it mean for their journey?
So the paper is all about the rupture, this very, very meaningful moment inside of the psychedelic experience, the one that we're looking for, right? The peak. Um, and this rupture can be kind of understood by us when we have a framework to understand it, right? Because without a framework, without a concept, we're in a complete oblivion. We're not sure what is what, where is Earth and where is the sky. So we can interpret this rupture, for example, as meeting our trauma. But it doesn't end here, right? When the journey is over, we want to take this interpretation to do something with it, right? This is the integration. This is the process that we were told to get uncertainty, and then you see what you can do with it, right? But sometimes it doesn't meet the real world, this interpretation. There is maybe no one that can vouch for this. Maybe I'm trying, it felt very genuine and true, but there is no anchors. I cannot talk to the person that maybe did something to me, or I don't find the memory, or yeah, it feels kind of off. It feels less personal and more external. And when it fails, we're left with a very strong experience, a very confusing experience, a one that felt very, very genuine, but we are not sure what to do with it. And I think those are the most beautiful, beautiful parts of a psychedelic experience if it's treated with respect and humbleness by the person that will help a person to integrate that. Because this is what we talked at the beginning. There is a lot of potential of holding the uncertainty and being close to the unknown and letting go and saying there is no possibility to make something explicit out of that. There is only this feeling, there is only this experience, the embodied experience, right? The being frightened, deeply frightened from something. And I think this is what makes life so potent, not the outcome, not the putting a strong exclamation mark. It's holding emotions, being close to them. For example, I will share something personal. I'm coming from a very troubled land originally, and I feel so much strong feelings. I feel anger, and I feel shame. I feel upset. I feel betrayed. I'm so sad of what's happening in the world at the moment, and I have zero answers. And I'm trying to be respectful for everyone. Could be Israelis, Zionists, can be Iranian, can be right-wing Americans. I will mention names. Could be Palestinians from Gaza. I truly love them all. And I hate them at the same time. I hate the amount of violence that is out there. And I have nothing to do with it. But this notion of being close to that, being with the love and hate at the same time, is very fruitful as a human being. I don't want to differentiate. I don't want to build hierarchies. I want to sit in the midst of chaos and feel like a human being, confused, weak, full of love and innocence, and also strong hate and shame and embarrassment. And when people help me do that, and this is actually the work I do with psychedelics in therapy, sit with this. And when I do
Yeah.
that, I feel kind of protected, and I feel that I do hold resilience at some point in the process. And yeah, I think that will be the most valuable work after a very intense, challenging psychedelic experience, when you use the trauma framework, for example, but in the end, it didn't really supported you.
Yeah, it's about, and thanks for sharing that vulnerable space for you and what's happening for you. And yeah, it's a beautifully imperfect, perfect journey that we all walk. And I found a lot of healing myself in the pain and the suffering and the challenges of living in a world like this and living in a body like this and a life like this as well, is the challenges and yeah, feeling that with others especially, and seeing that in others and reflecting with others. Like so much of that for me, the healing journey has been about sharing that the humanity of it all, and I find that very beautiful indeed. And I think what you're touching on and what you mentioned also in the research is that the framework failing is not a personal failure. It's the framework failing itself. It's a structural failure per se. But, and I think that was one of the most important things in the research that I read. It's good to repeat that. It's not a personal failure.
Yeah. I think the first thing a person should ask himself, is this imposed on me? Is this framework imposed? Is this coming from someone else? Is this the cultural aspect of my epistemology? And when you get a notion there, when you go this path, I think you can start looking for what is actually genuine for you. And the problem, Pascal, is the intimate, genuine things in us are much less coherent and sexy and translated into a diagram, a figure, than rebus, than trauma, than whatever. Yep, you are not an academic paper. You are not a Gabor Mate book. You are not a Van der Kolk book. You are not a Michael Pollan book. You are very unique, and you are very fragmented, and you are not clear to yourself, sometimes also to others. And it's very challenging experience, because nothing comes to you, sorry, as confusing when you consume frameworks, right? You go this direction, it's the path to success. You're going this direction, it's the path to success. But Pascal, if you and me did LSD like 20 years ago, we'll go hand in hand and we'll march into the unknown, right? I think this will be our framework. Let's go crazy, Pascal. Let's see what will happen. So a couple of years after, psychedelic renaissance kicked in, clinical research kicked in, amazing, intelligent, charismatic figures kicked in. And now, Pascal, I will take your hand and I will tell you, Pascal, we're going to meet our traumas. We're going to fight them, and we will come victorious on the other side. And you will say, Guy, yeah, I will bring my sword. I will bring my dagger. Yeah. And we'll march in. What will happen, I'm not sure. But yeah, we need to be very, very, very careful with that. This is an imposed script. I think this is an imposed script. And to be very clear, to whoever listen to this conversation and have this feeling that maybe I'm neglecting people that have actual trauma and that are completely aware of it and it's very clear to them, absolutely not. And I think so for people that have actual trauma, I think regressive experiences, meeting what happened to you under this a dome of emotional protection, of optimism, of feeling love, being with someone that you feel supported with is a very, very important experience. Important, valuable, and can be very healing.
Mhm. Let's talk about one of those frameworks which you touched on earlier, which is, I think, the title of the paper, which is "The Only Way Out is Through." That's a very common one that a lot of people have heard, and it can work beautifully when it aligns perfectly, but it can also be pretty harmful if it's not the right fit for them and it's handed to them. Can you talk about that specific phrase a little bit? Because a lot of people have heard that one. I'd be curious what your thoughts are on that.
Since the beginning of time, we need to be crucified in order to gain a place next to God, in order to, wash our sins. We need to experience hell to feel okay with ourselves. Gosh, don't be so harsh with yourself. You don't need to walk through the inferno to feel that you deserve to be happy, to be complete, to even be okay with yourself. The only way out is through, I think, is a framework that can do much more damage than it can support. I don't think a person needs to encounter his traumas. No, absolutely not. And I don't think you need to fight the dragon. And I think from day one, you are a beautiful soul in this world, and you deserve to be happy and being loved and be acknowledged as a human. And I think dehumanization is something that is kind of creeping concept. Dehumanizing this and dehumanizing that, and this is not right, and this is not beautiful, and you're not worth here. And the world needs to change much before you need to change yourself. I'm sorry. The world is messed up. Western capitalism is dominating and destroying everything, even psychedelic experiences. This morning I read that there is a ceasefire between the States and Iran. Gosh, Pascal, I don't have the words for that. This is a day ago. Someone said that he wanted to destroy an entire civilization out there, publicly.
Yeah.
The world needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. We're living in a weird world right now, and we're all affected by it. And I think, I really appreciate the thought and the truth of like everyone's beautiful and your story is beautiful, and everyone inherently, I believe, is good. That's my belief, and I think that deep inside we're all deeply connected. And there's
Sounds
a lot
like
of
we
work
were
to do.
both taking psychedelics.
Yeah. I want to touch on something powerful, and we're going to close soon with the last pattern. But before we close this one, because it's come up more than once now, and it comes up in the research as well, and I think it's very important to touch on this. It's the difference between a facilitator holding space for yourself, for you, and finding their own framework versus a facilitator filling that space out. And I've seen this happen in my own journeys of someone interjecting or adding their own flavor or adding their own thoughts. And you opened the talk today about your approach, which is around offering something. And the best facilitators I've been with, they're very careful about offering anything, and they're very intentional when they share something, and they always make it more about of a question. They're letting you explore it. Can we touch a little bit on that, because I think it's important just for safety and harm reduction, and
Yeah.
helping discern what's a good facilitator, because I think that's one of the best traits that I've seen in the good facilitators I've engaged with.
Yeah. Well, the first word that came to mind is humbleness and discipline. To not cross boundaries that you set before, and be very, very humble about what I am talking now to facilitator, of what you encounter during the experience and the interpretation that you're making. You are coming with a framework, and probably you think that's the right framework. It could be psychological, it can be shamanic, it could be spiritual, but you chose it, and you know why you chose it, and you got all the answers to why you chose it, and you will keep get approvals from the field, from your clients, right, of why you chose this framework. So be very careful with that, and go to supervision as much as you can. But yeah, I think what is crucial here is, I will say that I'm coming from kind of specific spiritual community growing up called Anthroposophia, Rudolf Steiner method of spiritual work. And I used to be a kindergarten teacher. And when I went into the first kindergarten I worked with, I asked the leading teacher, so what do I need to do? Like, what is my role? Please teach me. And she told me, Guy, you need to be the best carpet you could be. Be there. If someone falls, make the fall a bit softer for him. Make sure he's not hurt. Compliment the room, but don't take over. And be quiet. Shut up. They don't need you. You are here only to not create more harm. You are here to soften things. It's not about you. And I think this is what a good I think this is what a good facilitator should be. He should be a very fluffy carpet for the person that is going to have the experience. And if he is wishing for himself to be more than a carpet, so this will be a bit judgmental, maybe you should think twice before you are going to meet him. If he's offering you something even. Please, guys, do not offer anything to your clients. Only a safe experience. And don't offer. Do that. Make sure they will have a safe experience. You cannot control everything, of course. Don't try even. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to use that forever and ever now because it's such a beautiful analogy. So be a carpet, work with carpets, and don't try to be the lamp or the sofa or the walls. Just be a nice carpet that's beautiful and fluffy. I like that a lot. That's very helpful. Let's dive into the last pattern, which I've never heard being spoken about before, and I've seen it and I've experienced it myself. It's the social pressure of having a good story. I think a lot of people who have experienced integration circles, especially in person, the feather will get passed around and it'll be your turn, and you might be thinking like, oh God, I really need to share something really poetic now because this guy got this experience and I want to sound cool, or I want to kind of make it seem like I had a, majestic experience, and a lot of details get lost into that, of course. And yeah, I'd love for you to talk about this because you identify this as one of the breakdowns, right? And it's one that can be quieter than the others, but it can also be powerful. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that one.
Yeah, I think it touches what we mentioned before. This Instagram, AI polish, sharing what you experience, making a place for yourself in the world. I cannot imagine a psychedelic experience that is not shared afterwards, right? It's not don't happen anymore. I remember my first psychedelic experience. I'm not saying it's good, but I didn't have the words. I didn't know who to share with. I was ashamed and embarrassed that I had a psychedelic experience because it's drugs and I'm a drug addict because I had LSD during the weekend. And yeah, that was horrible. It was horrible that I couldn't speak out loud and I was embarrassed and people were judgmental. So it's a beautiful thing that we have those sharing circles, and it's a beautiful way for integration. Most, not most, many people are sharing that the most competent part of the psychedelic experience in a retreat was the sharing circles and being out there with other people. But sometimes we want to make sure that our script is is the right one, is a beautiful one, and I can gain love and respect and build my character better. There is this false self and true self of Don Winnicott. Usually, we're working outside in the world with the false self. The false self is polished, is beautiful, is coherent, is wearing a tie, is making his hair in the right way, and he get applause. And we are nurturing this false self during the years because this is kind of our Batman mask that we work outside and we feel protected and strong. But sometimes we get confused between the true self and the false self. And we're using one where we should use the other. And the compliments that the false self is getting, they're not truly nurturing. It's eating a McDonald's. You feel full, but it's not truly supportive. So I think we should ask ourselves during those integration circles, during sitting with our therapist, what do I share and why do I share this exact thing? And what do I want to gain out of it? And maybe I feel that I cannot be more vulnerable or being more genuine or honest. Maybe I want to have the extra, and the extra will be the applause of you had a so strong trauma and so strong experience, and you went through and you went to the other side, and now you're here, and like, wow, man, amazing, amazing. Maybe it's not the right thing that you need. Yeah.
Such a traveler. You've such a He-Man, and you've went through the dark night of the soul, and look at you, you're so
Human,
radiant
wow.
now, and you're so happy. Wow, I wish I was this happy. Yeah, I
But you
think
know,
there's,
Pascal, maybe this is the reason that they go back, because they're sharing the
mm,
story, doing this integration, but it's integration based on something that is a bit falsy, and you don't feel the holistic experience that you wish that you had. So you will go back and go back and go back.
yeah,
When you need to understand, you need to actually decide when do you feel you will feel this wholesomeness. Don't wait for it to come from the outside, from the applause, from the shaman, from the framework. No, you should decide.
yeah, and there's a real risk as well of sharing your story maybe too early. Like I've noticed that
Hmm.
the first thing I will share about the journey, like maybe the morning after, it'll be something I'm gonna have at the top of my mind for the next days. It's like, oh yeah, I shared this little bit and this is what it meant to me, and then I kind of hold on to it, and that removes a lot of the potential meaning for it because we do tend to, like we said earlier, hold on to things to make sense of them quickly without being open to the rest. So I think there's a real danger of sharing too much too fast with, not enough clarity basically. So it does cost you on the integration side.
Sense making is many times is kind of a dirty data that we're trying to clean and clean and clean and clean and clean. We should be very careful and read our data again and again and again, and also bring maybe another person that will look at this data and help us with that. I think the first thing we can share that is will be kind of a more genuine anchor for us to understand our experience is the bodily sensations and feelings and emotions. I felt sad. I felt lost. I felt lonely. I felt happy. Wait,
Mm.
just wait after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't try to
That's,
impose the script, right, on it immediately. Don't try to take something immediately to heal your trauma, to share with your friends, to make sense of it, to be less frightened from death, because we're chasing this wholesomeness to not die without nothing, right? I think this
Yeah.
is the main thing. We need to die wise. We need to die healed. We need to forgive. We need to win. We need
Mm.
to take revenge. Well, there is so many things we need to do before we die. And I think it
Gotta hurry
scares the
up.
shit out of
Gotta do it
us.
all.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There was an observation in the paper which talked about fetishizing the psychedelic insight and undervaluing the mundane of everyday life, you know. And can you speak a bit about that tension? Because I think that's what we're talking about here, is that we want to be up here but not really truly honor and value the mundane stuff, like I'm making my bed or like I'm brushing my teeth. Or I think
Yeah.
there's inherently a desire to go there because we're entering these journeys. But do you have any thoughts on that tension?
Yeah, but it will be interesting for me for a moment because it's kind of the first time I'm sharing this paper with someone. What did you had in mind when you read that? What came up for you? What?
You know, the tagline of Nectar is "Every day is a ceremony," because you know I find there's so much richness in that everyday mundane. And I didn't start out that way. I started with the
Mm,
chasing of the psychedelic insights, like I mentioned earlier, and I
mm,
was falling in love
mm,
with it and romanticizing it and
mm,
going for the perfection and continuously being in recursive healing mode. And I went through the gamut of like doing that and like stopping psychedelics completely almost at this point. It's very rare that I take medicine because I appreciate the beauty and the normalcy of everyday life. And there's a ton of richness and a lot of medicine in that. So I've kind of went full circle around that and around that tension.
beautiful. You know, I was so irritated by so many things in life, and I really needed the medicine, the psych experience, the peak experiences, whatever, right? Partying, etc., as an anchor for myself, um, to make sense of what I'm supposed to do here, and running away from everyday life that were boring and dull, and actually I was not sure what do I do with that. I was hating myself when I was tired, and I was upset with this, and I was upset with that. But when I am in a peak experience, all of this goes away, and I'm with something else, something external, something out of this world. And you can be like this several years, but at some point it will start damage you. And after the ecstasy, the laundry, you know, Jack Kornfield put that beautifully in his book. We cannot only reach for the stars. We will be very, very tired, frustrated. There will be a lot of fatigue. There will be depression, I think, at some point. And I think it's better to meet those dirty parts of us, the dull parts, and to work with them and to see the beauty in small things, and to see also the beauty of the body being changed. You grow up, you are less potent, but something else is happening. You're becoming wiser, you're becoming more calm, you are less judgmental, you are more respectful. Those beautiful things that you can see happening in your life, in your consciousness. But you need to have a peace of mind for that. And I can relate. I also rarely having a psychedelic experience nowadays, and more focused about relationship, resting, enjoying nature, um, being caring to the people I love, as much as I can. And a psychedelic experience is something beautiful, but for me, it's only a reminder.
Yeah.
I'm not even
Check
there
in.
for the experience itself. It doesn't need to be anything. Actually, it should not be strong.
Hmm.
I don't want strong experiences.
I don't either. I think that's something, you know, facilitators should talk about more, is just like microdoses of things, but I definitely agree with you. And um, yeah, last question on this pattern is how can we create spaces that are more welcoming of experiences that don't fit the normal or the expected narrative, I should say.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we are so immersive in psychological and trauma discourse and framework that we will not be able to run away from them anytime soon. They're dominating our psyche, they're dominating our epistemology, they're dominating the way that we observe the world. Everything. Everything need to have a strong analysis that will make a strong sense out in the end, and someone can point a finger at something and saying, this is the right thing and this is the wrong thing. This is what happened to me. Psychedelic experiences are fucking weird. They're weird and they're complex and they're fragmented and they don't make sense. And this is what's so nice about it. This is actually, Pascal, what I think is the healing part of the psychedelic experience, being close to the unknown, being not in control, meeting this fragileness of our psyche, of our body, being close to that, not in a frightening way, not in this, I'm meeting now the demons. And this is why I'm also saying, like, small doses will be nice. You don't need to have a full-blown experience. This will be frightening, right? This can even be traumatic. And I think when you're kind of experiencing that without any particular framework, and just let yourself being in a psychedelic experience that stands alone, you will gain more in the end. I do think you will gain more if we're talking about gaining an outcome, etc., etc. What I think facilitators should do is go to the right trainings, learn a lot, and then, as I said before, act like carpets.
Yeah, that's the best advice I've heard, by the way.
They need strong ethics. And it's really hard to constrain yourself. It's really hard to hold back. You also, as a practitioner, you want to gain something. You want to have success with your client. You want to lead him through the journey. Guiding is a very strong word. Facilitating even is a strong word. I have now studied interviewing practitioners that coming from psychology, psychiatry, social work. They're professionals in mental health, and they made this shift into psychedelic facilitation or guiding or whatever, or therapy. And I'm really into understanding how do we hold this role of being with someone when he's under the influence of psychedelics. I'm not offering anything, but what I do see is that there is a lot of need coming from facilitators to, I will say it like that. This is so sensitive and so personal to people, much more than their psychotherapy work. This is a profession. We're technicians. We're coming to the room, kind of. We're making sense of things. We're using this framework and this framework. But psychedelic work is sacred. And when those two things start to overlap, it can create a lot of chaos. So cleaning the table as much as we can. We don't know a lot here, honestly. And maybe
last few questions. Someone's listening to this conversation and they're maybe going through something they're not sure about, maybe carrying a story or a framework they're not sure is theirs. What would you want them to take away from this conversation?
I want to say that sometimes you cannot resolve. You cannot get the answers. Maybe the world will not be able to provide you the answers that you're wishing to have. And I think you should ponder on that before you're going into a psychedelic experience with this intention, with trauma framework, influenced by trauma discourse. There is a trauma culture. And when you deeply research trauma, PTSD, again, as I said before, it's not linear. There is no healing. There is holding complexity and holding it better and better until other things become more present in daily life than the actual trauma, suffering, and flashbacks. And this can be good enough, but it's years and years and years of being in therapy and practice. And psychedelics are not silver bullets. And sorry, they will not give you the answer. This is me being very judgmental, okay? I think they will not give you the answer. I think they're acting as, what's the word? Compass, yeah? And then you need to float or go into this direction, kind of, right? And you need a good boat or a good carriage or a good car. You need a good Lamborghini car. And this car is your everyday life. It's the way that you sleep. It's the way that you eat. It's your work. It's your partner. It's the way you're having sex. It's the way that people talk to you and you talk to other. It's it's your therapy. It's, do you meditate or you don't meditate? Do you abuse drugs? What the hell do you do? This is what will carry you to the Northern Star or whatever. You might reach this this Northern Star in the end of your life. Can you sit in this carriage for a long time? So you should be, as much as you can, humble with yourself and the path that you took in order to feel better. Please check if the trauma framework is imposed on you or it's genuine for you before you're entering a psychedelic experience. Because after a psychedelic experience, things can kind of get tattooed. It's a very strong experience, very suggestive. And what we see in the Challenging Psychedelic Experience Project research, it can linger for 30 years. It can become a traumatic experience. It can destroy families. It can destroy the relationship with your significant other. It can be life-changing for good and also for bad. So it was a long answer.
I love it. And actually, my next question was, can we ride a dragon through that journey? Because that would be pretty cool, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please.
Yes. Okay. My next question was actually about advice for someone preparing for a journey, but I feel like that bit was perfect for them as well. Unless you have another one you want to add.
I just want to say something very pragmatic. If you are going to a psychedelic retreat or a psychedelic session, retreat are kind of, the framework is you have like maybe 1 or 2 meetings of integration before you're reaching the spot. And then you have maybe a circle and you have a private talk, etc., etc. When you're going to a private facilitator or whatever you want to call it, and if he or she or them are offering only 1 to 2 free sessions, and you feel that you need more, and you cannot get it because it's not therapy, reconsider. And if also he, she, them are not offering more than 1, reconsider. I think people need much more time before they're entering a guided psychedelic experience, much more time. And I understand retreat setting is something completely different, of course, and you cannot do that. And usually I think the people that are going to retreat are the more healthier, so-called, quote-unquote, people. But if you're really suffering and you want to have a healing psychedelic experience, you should get all the time in the world. All the time in the world. And you should feel super duper protective and that everything sits very genuinely for you. Not perfect, genuine for you.
Yeah, well said and beautiful advice, and I agree. Was there anything else
And
you want
also
to add?
to have the possibility to quit, Pascal. And if you're feeling that you're kind of ashamed or embarrassed and you don't feel that maybe you will be judgmental, or you should always feel completely capable of quitting and stepping back. And, those things are crucial for me.
I don't hear that last one quite often, but thank you for reminding us that that's also possible. There's always an eject button if it doesn't feel right, and you can always do it later or not at all. When can people read this research of yours? Is there a timeline, or how can people access it as well?
So I'm calling the reviewers of this paper. I will not mention the name of the journal to accept it with no changes and complement my work, and then you can read it in very soon, or I will need to wait a couple of months. But this specific article will be out there, I hope, in the next month or two to three, depends. But you can look for other works. You can find my works on my website. It's guysimon.com/eg, or you can look into my Google Scholar. And yeah, most of my work are around the discourse, the epistemology, and the ontology of people that underwent psychedelic experiences and with relation to trauma.
Such fascinating work from a fascinating person. Thank you so much for sharing with us. It was really lovely to hear from you and to broaden my understanding of this work. And it's always an honor to be able to receive that. So thank you so much for everything you're doing and for being with us today. And yeah, thank you so much. And I hope people listening got something really valuable, which I'm sure they did, because I received a lot. So thank you for that.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your time and a very nurturing conversation. Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.